Before Rebecca comes up with our first speaker, let me talk to you a little bit about John Caslione. He is a business leader and has been for years, but he is also an adjunct professor at Georgetown University. He has done business in 88 countries in 6 continents around the world, which is pretty close to the full number of continents that we have, as I understand. He has offices in major cities all around the world, and he spends the majority of his time dealing with emerging businesses. So when he talks today, you will know that comes from a long time of experience, not just something that was coming out of a textbook. But speaking of books, he has written 5 books and numerous articles. He has the white paper that's available on your thumb drive. His specialty is globalism strategy. And he works, as I mentioned, in Asia, the Middle East, any place that there's emerging markets. And just in case you think he sits in the United States and writes about it, he came in from Rome last night, and after today at lunch, he will be heading off to Frankfurt on his way to Kuwait to do more work in the emerging business world. So he and Rebecca will now be leading us in a discussion. It'll be a Q&A format. Rebecca will be asking John questions. He will be responding, but you will also have an opportunity to listen and weigh in.
I would like to thank all of you for being here this morning. It's an important time. In many ways, not only for you and for this industry, for our country. There are certain defining moments in all of our lives and in the lives of our businesses and the lives of our countries. And this is one of those. We are going through a very difficult time. And in fact, we have entered here in the United States, not just here in California, but in the United States, as well as in Europe and much of the developed world, we have entered into the next decade. It's a low-growth decade. And when you start to look at all of the cold, hard facts, and I'm not going to bore you with a lot of statistics. That's not what you came to hear. You know the condition of your industry. You know the condition of the economy here. Okay, not only here in California and in the West, but all over the United States. It is inescapable that we have entered into a decade that'll be low growth. The fact of the matter is that we have entered into, the whole world has, in addition to a decade of low growth, we've entered into a very turbulent time in the world economy. And we call it, in mine and my co-author's last book, we call it the age of turbulence, where we're going to see more and more turbulence and uncertainty, and heightened levels of it will continue on. And it has to do with globalization. Globalization is a double-edged sword. On the good side, for your industry specifically, standardization of specifications around the world. And we lead the world. So what's good enough for us, it's good enough for everybody, and then some. So already there, we've got a leg up.
I would be sitting there saying, okay, as a business owner, okay, I've got to change what I've been doing.
Right.
I've got to now look at some new markets. Okay, I hear you, John. You're telling me I got to think about the global markets. But what's it going to cost me to do that? Mm-hmm. How do I do that? And what should I expect? Because what I want these people to have when they leave today is something in their pocket. Sure. Something in their memory that says, okay, maybe I hang on another 6 months and see what occurs. We know nothing's going to occur, but that's just human nature. Sure. But at some point they say, maybe I better start reading that book and start thinking about outside of the U.S. So when you're going to leave this country, and I believe me, for me, there was day one when we had to do it. And I got to tell you, it was a little bit unnerving. And I made every mistake there was. I admit that. I made every mistake there was, okay? But there are ways to mitigate your risk. One of the things that, especially in a service industry, and what we do is service, right? There's actually 2 modes of entry, and one of them is what we call client following, and the other one is market seeking. Client following is exactly what it says. It's how a lot of companies have started. It's how my company started. My companies have started when we did this. We actually sought out global, U.S. companies that were global, and they said, you know what, you've done a great job for us here domestically.
Can you do something for us in another part of the world? In good American fashion? Sure. Because they ask the question, can you versus have you ever done? Okay? And so, sure, and then you figure out a way to do it. Because that's what we Americans know how to do. We figure out a way to do it. At least that's what we used to be able to do. Okay? And so, just with that, you mitigate a lot of your risk. And in fact, when you're doing that, you can actually be a little bit more aggressive when you're doing that. There's a design firm out of Philadelphia, Kling Stubens, and they just opened up an office in Beijing last year. I mean, again, your industry knows how to handle risk. What they did was they hired a woman, a Chinese-American woman. This is all part of a plan. Brought her in, she worked a few years within the company, she learned the company, she learned the company values, the ethos, how the company operates. And then they sent her with a small team over to China. They started to get, and it took a while, started to get one deal, a second deal, and then sending people over. Now after 2 years, they opened up their office in Beijing last year that's going to be handling all of Asia. They're going to be consumed with just China, because they'll eventually going to have to open up an office in India. Okay, so that doesn't have to be terrifying. There are ways to do this. There's another company, it's actually an Irish company, and admittedly, I have to say this, with all the work that we do, and what we do is we will find financing for projects, and we also find the service companies or suppliers for projects. And there's a noticeable lack of U.S. companies. And a lot of it's cultural for us. Europeans are much more comfortable with it because they've got a history of colonization. That's what they've done. Some countries more than others. There's an Irish company, a really cool company, I like them a lot, McNally Design. And they did the same thing that Kling Stubens did, and they focused on the Middle East. And they just opened up an office earlier this year in the Dubai free zone area, which is airport free zone area, which is between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And 20 people just focusing on the Middle East. You know who their first clients were? Sheraton and JW Marriott. Because they were doing work for them in Europe. I mean, folks, I don't want to say it's not rocket science, but it's not rocket science. And a lot of the fear that we have is really unfounded.
Okay, so you've talked a little bit about the client following. Mm-hmm. That sounds less risky than maybe this.
Oh, yeah, the market seeking. Market seeking is when you're looking for foreign clients. But you say that, though. I've seen companies, it's sort of even in terms of their approaches.
So tell us about the market seeking. How does that work?
Market seeking is, you know what? There's a ton of business going on in the Gulf and the Middle East. There's a ton of business going on in North Africa. You know what? I'm going to go after those clients. And maybe what I need to do is I need to partner with companies already there. Maybe I need to engage agents or consultants or whatever who can take me there, make the introductions, try to get the first project, break the ice, learn as we go. I've oftentimes said that, experience gives you perspective. Everything else is just information. How many of you have been to China? Okay, for the rest of you, I can talk to you for the next 3 days about China, and you won't get it. You've got to go there. Feel it, sense it, smell it, taste it. You got to go there, and you got to learn. And if you have the financial wherewithal, you go there. Go to school on a country, on a region. Understand it. Prepare. Okay? And then if you want to, you're going to make a number of visits before you set up an office. I would encourage you to hire people that are from that region that are already here. UCI. How many students are foreign?
Almost 50%.
Almost 50%. How many students are there within the School of Design? And I mean, I'd start to do it. Get them while they're young, so you can, affect their thinking and get them there. And with the plan that, eventually they're going to go home and they're going to bring us to their home. And, you're going to run parallel. And you're starting to do your homework on the markets. You're doing these types of things. Okay? The thing is, the fear is natural, but it's unfounded. It really is. And so you'll get a project. You'll partner on a project. You don't have to lead the first project. One of the things that we here tend to do is that we have to lead, and we have to have the lion's share of everything. That's not the way the rest of the world, operates in business. Sometimes you come in, you lead this, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you take a bigger piece of this, sometimes you don't. And you share. And there are a number of components to it that you share. And it becomes cumulative, and you want to share. We do a lot of business in the Gulf, in the Middle East, expanded the Gulf and Middle East, and North Africa. It's mostly West Africa and East Africa. And one of the things that's common between the two of them, and I've come to learn this over the last 20 years, is that there's a heavy Muslim population. And I actually like a lot of these folks. You know what how they think? God, make me wealthy and make all my friends around me wealthy too. Because if it was just God make me wealthy, the opposite's going to happen. And in America, what do? Individualism. It's me. It's my company. That's not the way it works in developing markets. You partner. You do these things. You help. You let them lead. You help here. They'll have you lead. And it all works out, and you build that foundation. And I will tell you this, it happens more quickly than you can realize. And so you're going to have to start to look at your internal organization. And you're going to start to have to bring in people that are from these other countries. And you have to start to build a plan. This is not something you're just going to go and quickly do like this. You'll be doing a number of things parallel. You have to ready your own organization internally to be able to do these things. If you started today, 6 to 12 months from now, you will have your first piece of business, and it may be something very small. If you dedicate yourself to that, I assure you, you will have your first piece of business.
That's new business.
New business in countries that have growth rates that are double and triple more than we have for the foreseeable future.
John, thank you for the challenge, for inspiring us, for opening a conversation that didn't exist. And I think it'll create good in our industry and for our companies and for our partners. So thank you very much for your wisdom and your insight. I've enjoyed it tremendously, and I hope you have too.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.